afternoon. My name's Debora Dickson, and I'm the host of Our Voices. Today is the month of May, and it's Mother's Day. All of those that have been privileged to have wonderful mothers and aunts and other family members to help raise us, we know what a special day and a special time this is. So I wanted to dedicate this show to all the mothers, to all the ladies that have acted as mothers, to the aunts, to the sisters, to all of the families and extended friends that have helped to raise each and every one of us. Today, my guest is Miss Evelyn, the Heart Lady Polk. And it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to have her as our guest today. Evelyn is very close to my heart in that I had foster grandchildren, and Evelyn, to raise a village, it takes more than a village. It takes everybody. And welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you were able to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here and excited.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell us a little bit about how you started in terms of foster care. I know it goes back a number of years that you've been doing this for a number of years. I think I met you maybe 15 or 20 years ago.
And
I remember. Yes, absolutely, I remember. And I remember at the time you were looking for someone to help you write a grant. And you and I collaborated and talked for a while. Things didn't quite work out the way that I wanted them to, or you wanted them to, but still, we've had a friendship and an association since that time. So I'm just always pleased to hear about you and all the wonderful work that you do. So tell us a little bit about it.
Well, thank you for one. Well, basically, I feel like I'm on all sides of the foster care, except for having been a foster child. And people ask me, well, you're a foster child, why is it that you're so passionate about it? But my nonprofit organization, For a Child's Heart, is one that I started to provide counseling and support services because I had been a social worker and I saw what kids went through. Then I became the foster and adoptive parent myself. And in trying to find a therapist for my sons, people did not get what the real issues were. They wanted to look at our family like we had been together all along, and they didn't understand some of the loss and grief issues that were happening with the children. And so even though I was a therapist, I could not be the therapist for my own, but I wasn't licensed yet. And so when I started the nonprofit, I started off doing support groups for the potential adoptive parents and the caregivers, because I felt that there was just some things that people didn't understand.
There is such a wide disinformation out there about foster care and about, you know, the damage that is done to children. I mean, that's just, I mean, that's there. That's just a fact. The losses are such that people kind of, you know, they look at the physical part of taking care of them in terms of, you know, putting a roof over their head and food in their mouth, but they forget about the loss.
The heart.
The heart.
And that's what it's all about, is that it's one thing to get people to treat them and provide for them, but that nurturing.
Yes.
And actually, can I share with you the story about where it came from?
Absolutely.
My youngest foster son, who I actually met at an adoption fair, who's now 30 years old.
Oh my gracious.
I was cutting, on Saturday nights I would cut their hair to prepare for Sunday school. So I got the stool and I got the clippers and everything, and he had a little snaggle tooth, and he was just always fidgeting, and he was looking up at my head, and I said, Brandon, be still. I said, you're gonna end up with a hole in your head. And he said, no, I said, why are you doing that? He said, because when you touch me like that, it makes my heart warm.
Oh, Evelyn, I could just cry for that.
I did.
How beautiful.
I did. And then he added, and it's never felt like that before.
Oh my
And
gracious.
this is a child who, by the time he was 6, had already been through like 3 or 4 homes.
Yes, yes.
So that's why I named my organization For a Child's Heart, because I want whatever we do to be a part of nurturing a child's heart, to make them feel warm.
That is just the most touching thing that I've ever heard. I have a girlfriend whose children are in foster care in Arizona, and I know each state you know, has their own set of rules, but the changes that they have made, this lady is a professional woman, she's a nurse, you know, she wanted her grandchildren, and she had taken them down to hopefully to reunite with the daughter. The daughter got into more trouble, so foster care stepped in, and now a year and a half, 2 years later, they still won't release those kids to this grandmother
who tried to,
I mean, she provided for them for 6 years prior to taking them down to this other state, and now she's in this other state, and the children are just not being treated properly. And tell us a little bit about some of the processes that they have to go through. I mean, we know the police comes in and they take the kids away, they take them in foster care. What happens to those children?
Well, every situation is different.
Okay.
It also depends on what the reason is, whether it's abuse, neglect, abandonment, whatever.
Okay.
Parental illness, parental mental illness. So there can be a whole different spectrum of reasons why they're in care. If they're coming in and it's emergency protection and they're removing the child, they usually go into what is called an emergency foster care placement, an ER response.
Okay.
And they can stay there from anywhere from a day to however long it takes to go to court to file the petition to declare them dependents of the court. Then, depending on if there's family, the biological parent that they were living with, if they're going to reunify, then they try to find a home where they can stay for 6 months to work on a reunification plan to help the parent get whatever they need to get together, whether it's substance abuse or whether it's getting a home, a place to live, whatever it is. They're supposed to, during that time, see if there are relatives who are available to take care of them so the child can stay connected to family. And that becomes a real big issue.
That's where this particular friend is having her most difficulty with, because it's like they pretend like those children don't have anybody to take them, and she's ready and available to take them. A little quick story, when I got custody of my grandchildren, they were 5 and 7 at the time, and I had to fly down to Los Angeles, and Solano County and Los Angeles don't have a reciprocal agreement, okay? So now here my kids stuck down here. Here's a grandmother ready, willing, and able to take them. And I was put through, my gosh, the hoops that I had to jump through were just almost too numerous to mention. But I remember when I went to a court hearing date down in Los Angeles at this center, that being so overwhelmed, I couldn't imagine how the children felt. I'm an adult, and I was totally overwhelmed. It was 7 floors of offices and lawyers and social workers and courtrooms and special holding places where that was my first experience at that.
And then you go in the courtroom and they say blah, 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 next. And you're saying, what happened?
What happened? Exactly that. That's
as a social worker, I was almost called as being in contempt of court because I was determined I was going to get my say.
Wait a minute, I got a couple of things to say,
Exactly.
I remember the judge at that particular hearing, she said to my grandson, he was 5, and he said, she asked him where he wanted to be, which I thought was very unusual. And he said, well, I'm going to my real home. My real home is in Vallejo, California. I mean, this was my house was the stability that they knew, and thank God that I was able to. My husband and I were able to get them and bring them here, and they're doing fine now. But all situations don't always turn out like that, and I can't imagine if we weren't there where my kids would be right now in terms of terming out of the system. They just say, okay, now we haven't really taught you anything. You've been to 18 different homes or 5 different homes or whatever. Everybody has a different way of how they parent, and now you're 18. Bye bye. We'll see you.
Right.
And then you step in. With your beautiful self, and go in and help them find a way and learn how to write checks and pay their bills and do things that adults are supposed to do, that you're supposed to be training your kids to do as you're bringing them up.
Right. And fortunately, most of the young people that I work with now, I don't do as much counseling with those who are in the care because one is draining. I was dealing with all these different counties.
Sure.
However, what I've done now is start to develop mentoring relationships.
Okay.
So a lot of the young people that I have the privilege of working with now are ones I've known since they were 8, 9, 10, and adolescents and on up. And actually, I went to a play this morning for one of the kids that I worked with when she was a teenager. Now her children
how wonderful.
And that's the joyous part, because I think the system looks at them, this is a case, we need to do what we do, and dismiss it. But what's the impact that it leaves on these children when they become adults? They have to function beyond.
Yes.
Fortunately, now there are some independent living skills programs that teach them those things, and now with the change in the law and transitioning out, they don't have to get kicked out as soon as they turn 18.
Okay.
They have until, I guess, 22 or 23. There's called Transitional Living Program. So it was passed here in California,
okay,
and it's happening individually in various states.
Okay, so that is obviously something new, because by the time my kids were 18, or the first one was 18 in 2010, they just said bye, you know.
But my thing is to try to get the village to realize, just because they can stay in care, they still need those ongoing relationships.
Yes.
And for those who are really striving, trying to go to school.
Oh boy.
Finances. I have one young lady, she was working 2 jobs, taking classes out at Napa, working in Antioch, and didn't have a computer. Then she'd go downtown to the library to work that. She needed a computer.
Yeah.
Then a car. You know.
Yes.
So I'm needing people in the community to say, okay, I need someone that can help to repair and maintain this young lady's car without costing us an arm and a leg.
Right.
You know, who does that when we don't have, you know, that situation?
Right.
Uncles, cousins,
That's
brothers.
Right. That's right.
You know, it's like, come on, Barbara, let me take a look under the hood.
Right,
you know?
right. That's right.
So that's the kind of support that I'm looking for in the village, because when children don't have anyone, they either go about just feeling like they're totally alone, or they take abuse from people just to stay in, to get some of those needs met.
Yes.
And it's not necessary.
No, it's not. I'm so happy to know that things are changing and seem to be changing for the better for our children, because they all belong to us. And,
That's right.
you know, we can pretend like that they don't belong to us, but they eventually become adults, and they're out there. So now, if we haven't given them the tools to, you know, to live independently, to live a good life, now what? Now what happens to them?
Exactly.
You know, we're still going to take care of them.
Right, one way or the other.
One way or the other.
We might as well be through their hearts and doing it. You know, it's like the quote, you know, was it Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to raise a healthy man than to repair a broken one.
Yes.
So it's like, raise them up and give them that strength, and not have to totally restructure their whole lives, because it's more difficult.
Right.
I went to a play last weekend, a young lady, she was raised in foster care and went through 2 adoptive placements, and was actually injured in the first placement, which left her blind.
Wow.
And so she's written a book called Black, Blind, and Female, or Female, Blind, and Black.
That.
But she did a one-woman act called Somebody Else's Child. It's awesome.
Oh,
so I really
that.
want to promote her. But, you know, she has, you know, the title, Somebody Else's Child. And I have a chapter in my book that says, they're all our children.
Yes.
You know, when someone said, those yours? I said, they're all mine. They're all ours.
We have an aunt that is so close to our family. She's, thank God, 98 years old, close to, well, 97. I take it back. I'm sorry, Annie. But in any event, when she comes to my house and all the kids are running in, she always sits right next to my mother, who, thank God, will be 90 this year, and we're so proud and pleased of that. But she sits next to my mother and she'll say, is that one yours? Is that one yours? Is that one yours? And my mother will say, yeah, that one's mine. No, that one's not mine, but that one belongs to us. You know, it's like, because in my house and in my family coming up, that was just something that we did. People would come over, and, you know, kids, and, you know, that was, we just had an open house, and sometimes they would stay, you know, circumstances in their family would mean that they couldn't stay where they were, and they would stay with us until, you know, things got better. So I was raised like that. I mean, you know, that was my upbringing, and Vallejo was absolutely the perfect town for that.
Wow. See, I grew up an only child, so I always had that sense I wanted to have a house.
Oh, okay.
You know, until my sister came along, but I was half grown.
You were done then.
But it's interesting, when I took my youngest son, I already had the oldest one, but I took the youngest one, I just showed up and I had this little kid with me. So my mother said, who is people?
Yeah.
I said, we are. She said, I said, us. She looked at me like, I know you're not bringing another child. I was like, oh, well.
Yeah, I am. I am. Well, that is so fantastic. And Mother's Day, what can you, the word mother, I mean, that whole connotation means warmth, and it means love, and it means caring, and it means unconditional. Our pastor did a sermon this past Sunday, and he talked about the unconditional love that a mother has. And we, as families in this community, we have to have that type of unconditional love for these kids. We see them, we want to condemn them, we want to, you know, knock them down and say, well, you know, I can look at him and that's a bad seed, that's a bad, you know, she's bad, you know, but you don't know their story.
That's right.
You don't know their story. You don't know what these children have gone through or going through trying to just, survive. And it's hard. It's hard out here for it's hard out here. It is no joke. And for our children out here now, in earlier times, you could get a job. It's so difficult for them to get it. And then if they do get a job, now they want credit reports before you get a job. Well, how do you get a credit report when you're 18 years old and you've not worked and you don't own anything? What is that? What is that all about?
Right. And, well, except for those who their parents put their PG&E and cable in the kids' their credit is messed up. And that's right. And when you say that, I really emphasize that, because even though we might not like their appearance at times, we have to look on the inside.
Yes.
And I look at them and I look at them with a heart of love, because I've sat down across from them and heard what's in their hearts that other people don't get to see.
Right.
And so when, you got this big old 300-something pound, looking child walking up, and you say, "That's my baby."
Yeah.
And people, "Baby?" I feel that way, and it's interesting on Facebook. I have all the different ones, and when they found out that I know one, and one young man said, "I didn't know you know them. You know everybody." I said, "Why you didn't?" He said, "Well, I knew you know a lot of people. I just didn't think you know." I said, "Well, somebody like him?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's all right. I got gangster babies
That's
too."
That's right. I got them all.
Yeah.
I got them all. When we were at the series, the Women's Author Series, and you were giving your talk there was a young man that walked in, and I saw your face light up like a Christmas tree. Literally, I thought, well, who the heck is this? I mean, you were so excited about him, and you introduced him to the audience and let him know. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that gentleman.
That young man, his name is Kahim, and some of you may know him because he is an artist. He raps, but he's gone from hip hop to gospel.
Okay, all right.
And he's actually writing a book, which I'm going to get to publish, that we get established after that day.
Yes.
And he's doing some awesome things in the community, reaching out. But I remember when he was in middle school, and that's when I met him. And I don't know if you heard him say, "Whatever I did, I apologize." I apologize.
He said, "Forgive me right now. I just want to say right now." I had the opportunity to do that with an old teacher of mine. I was at the gym, and I kept looking at him, and I said, "Is your name such and such?" And he said, "Yeah, that's my name." And that was such an unusual name. And I said, "I'm sorry. You were my 8th grade science teacher, and I just want this opportunity to apologize to you right now." He said, "Well, you were one of the livelier ones. I remember you." Yeah, okay, I bet you do.
But it's such a joy to be able to be on this side of it, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
And in my book, 4 or 5 of the young people I talked about, actually, they contributed.
Yeah.
And they told their stories in the book. And just to see that what their perspective was when we were doing it. And one of the young men there, when you talk about the mother, I wanted to talk about that, because when we say what a mother's love is, unfortunately, there's so many people who have not experienced it
Yes,
that
ma'am,
way.
and I know that.
And so it's important that we break it down to what we mean.
Yes.
And even in my relationship with my mother wasn't a huggy, kissy type person. She told me, she said, "I don't know where you came from." But she was a provider.
Yes.
She was a provider.
Yes.
And I said, we have people who are providers, we have people who are nurturers, we have some people who, as Yalavan said, they did their role, they brought us here.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's helping people to resolve that, but to find it. And that's why we have to be what is needed. If you're a hugger person, you do that.
Yeah.
If you're a provider, you do that too. And I think, and a teacher.
Yes.
And kids tell me, that I like, because you always tell me, the right thing, but you let me talk. We need listeners. So there are different things that we can do to let them know that they're still worthy of it.
Right.
And to not carry that anger and unforgiveness towards the biological parent who, for some reason or whatever reason, could not do that.
Was just unable to do that. Yes. And that is so important in terms of their personal growth, because it'll stymie them, it'll stop them, and they won't really be able to grow and see the beauty that really there is. I mean, there's some beautiful things out here.
Right. And we have to believe. We have to believe. One of the greatest things that happened to me, and I think we all know Montoya Graham.
Yes.
I said I didn't meet him till he was a young adult. So everybody told me what he was
like as a young man.
And so he spoke at one of our Foster Pride events. He was a keynote speaker. There was someone who called me to ask what time did it start, because, no, she came by, but she came before because we did workshops in the morning and the dinner wasn't until the evening. She said, I just want to see that this is the same child that I had in my class.
I don't believe it.
And she said, I just can't believe it. And so when I showed her, she said, that is him.
That is so wonderful.
I can imagine how she felt. And it's all, I got to be on that other end. And so it's like we all have different phases of our roles in the village. I got in my, there's another young lady called Kevin Brown, who's one of our Vallejo children that Mr. Stewart gave me from the Boys and Girls Club. And I didn't meet him until he was like a junior in high school. But it was like, it's like we passed the baton. So I had him through college, and now he's got this blooming speaking career, is traveling all over the world. And one of my other kids said, you think he's Hart's Wall of Fame, character. I'm so proud of them. And it's like we each have had a role.
And each one of us will play that role that we are designed and that we are predestined to play in that person's life. I think about my grandchildren. I have 6 of them, as I said, and each one of them I've had the opportunity to just, do some mentoring, do some teaching, do some mothering, and then leading by example. That is also very important because kids, you can tell and you can talk wah, 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 and after a while they just tune you out. They're like, well, whatever, but if they see you and they see your lifestyle and they see what you're doing and they see that you walk the walk and you talk the talk.
Exactly.
Then that's what they pick up on, and that's what they look at, and that's what they attempt to pattern themselves and then, to live their lives by. And I just think that that's wonderful.
Yeah, my motto is, I can show you better than I can tell you.
Absolutely.
I would say a little bit. And I tell them, I said, you guys hold me accountable too. I said, because I could get a little cuckoo out here.
Well,
I said, but you know what keeps me going? They said, what? I said, I would feel really bad if I told you to do something, you come to look for me, and they said, Miss Evelyn's in jail.
That would be a bit of a problem.
But I live for them.
I
live for them.
Absolutely wonderful. I want to talk a little bit about your book. I know you've written a couple of books, and that you are a speaker and an author and a lecturer. So tell us a little bit about that aspect of.
Well, my first book was my memoir. It's Heart Work.
Hard work, okay.
Being the village that raises a child. And it's really a memoir. It started off, I was going to talk about my experience being a foster and adoptive parent, because there were highs, but there were some really lows. That I really went through some very difficult times.
I'm sure.
And when people would ask me how things are going, I said, read it in the book. Years ago, I kept saying,
I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
And I hadn't even started writing the book, but I would take notes, I would journal. So when I decided to do the memoir, I also realized, well, this didn't start just with these 2 that I brought in my home. It started way back when I was working, because the first time a kid called me mom. So I went back to when I was working in group homes and when I became a social worker. And so the first part of the book is called Entering the Village. The second part is called Bringing the Village Home.
Okay.
And so wonderful. It's just about that whole experience. And I think it's a good read, and I've gotten lots of good responses.
You certainly have. And the audience was so receptive to you at the lecture. And, I haven't had the opportunity to read it yet, but I intend to.
And then there's a workbook that I did later, because I got a lot of responses, but I wanted to know, what did people get out of it? Because I want to change the way we relate to our youth. And so if you read it, it was good, okay. But it's like a sermon. What did he preach about? I don't know, it was just good. So I wanted them to know. So I did a workbook that helps people. It's called How's Your Heart Working in the Village? Help us to really understand how we react and how we really feel deep down inside that causes us to respond to our young people. So I'm using that to do trainings for foster parents, caregivers, anyone that's working with you.
Now that right there, see, that's something that will stick and stay, because people need to know the nuts and bolts of how to do stuff. And a lot of times we hear about this, but we don't know what's the first step. How do we do this and how do we do that? So that's fantastic. Well, I want to talk about the fact that May is also, besides being Mother's Day and my birthday, by the way. Thank you very much. I had the best birthday this year. It was absolutely wonderful. But it's also National Foster Care Month and National Mental Health Month. And here in America, this is, and I know it's worldwide, but I live in America. we act as if mental health is just the worst thing in the world. We don't even, let's just put it in the back drawer. Let's don't talk about it. Let's don't deal with it. And that's just not right. It's just not fair, because people are just people, and we all have problems. We all have situations. We all have, we need a hand sometime. We need somebody to point a light out of the darkness for us. And if we are looking down on folk because of their mental illness, we can't shine a light.
Exactly.
No, we cannot shine a light. So I'm just absolutely delighted with you being here today. This show, I look forward to it. As I told you, you came to mind. I was there when you did your talk at the McGree-Godot Gallery. And the response that you got from people was just fantastic. And I'm yes, I do remember we met many years ago, and I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time out of your very, very busy schedule to come here and share this information about foster care, about foster children, and about did I make it right?
The heart, that's right.
The heart, I made the heart. I made the heart. So fantastic.
And I just want to say thank you for having me, because it's nice, it's different to be on this side. I'm used to being on that side, so it's like, it's a joy.
Well, you did wonderful, because usually a take charge person such as yourself is like, I'm in charge, but you're also a good listener, and that's what children need, that's what people need, to be able to listen and to feel like not only am I being heard, I'm also being felt.
Embraced.
And that is absolutely your blessing. That's why God brought you here. He put you here, and He opened up all of these doors. And if there's ever anything that I can do to help you, you have my telephone number.
Okay.
All right. And I never say anything just lightly. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It means a lot to me, having had grandchildren in foster care and watching what it went through and all the things that they did. So thank you again for being my guest here today. This is Debora Dickson on Our Voices. This is Mother's Day, and I hope each and every one of you had a beautiful Mother's Day. You deserve it. You've worked hard. You raised your children. Some of you are up, and there's these young mothers out here. I want to give a heads up to you. Listen, it'll be over soon. That's all I can say to you. That 13 through 18, I promise you, whether it's a girl or it's a boy, it will be over soon, okay? So come and watch the show. We're on Mondays and Fridays at 6 p.m., Channel 27, VCAT TV. This is Debora Dickson, the host of Our Voices, and thank you for being with me today. Lovely show. Thank you again, Evelyn. You're